My life runs on borrowed time, measured in the decaying half-life of isotopes I can't even pronounce. They call me Elara, though that name feels like a borrowed coat, threadbare and ill-fitting. My real name dissolved years ago, lost somewhere in the sterile hum of the reintegration clinic after the incident, the one that fractured my memory and left me with a unique sensitivity. I see temporal distortions. Not hallucinations, but actual glitches in the space-time continuum, moments looping, objects phasing slightly out of sync, colors bleeding from one second into the next. It makes holding down a job challenging. Mostly, I drift, scraping by on odd data splicing gigs, forever feeling like I'm living a half second behind everyone else. The job offer wasn't advertised. It arrived like a phantom signal, a single, untraceable data packet materializing on my archaic neural implant, one of the few pieces of tech my fractured system tolerates. The sender ID was just a string of prime numbers. The message was concise, almost surgically precise. Seeking Chrono-Botanist for temporal anomaly mitigation. Subject must possess high-level temporal sensitivity, class gamma or above. Duties involve cultivation and stabilization of nonlinear flora within controlled environment. Full bio-support and temporal shielding provided. Unparalleled compensation. Secrecy level, Umbra. Respond via encrypted handshake protocol, attached, within one solar cycle. Chrono-Botanist? Nonlinear flora? Temporal sensitivity class gamma? It sounded like jargon lifted from a theoretical physics paper blended with horticultural fantasy. Yet, unparalleled compensation resonated louder than the absurdity. And temporal shielding. Could this place, whatever it was, offer respite from the constant visual static that plagued my existence? It felt too specific, too targeted. They knew about my sensitivity. How? The handshake protocol was complex, requiring specific, timed neural pulses that felt less like inputting a password and more like tuning my own brainwaves to a specific, alien frequency. It left me nauseous and disoriented, my vision swimming with overlapping moments. Then, acceptance. Sensitivity confirmed, class gamma prime. Anomalous memory fragmentation noted, tolerable. Proceed TO designated transit node sigma 9, coordinates attached, at 0300 standard time. Silence is absolute. Transit node sigma 9 wasn't on any public map. The coordinates led deep into the city's abandoned geothermal exchange sector, a skeletal labyrinth of rusted pipes, pressure valves venting perpetual steam, and concrete bunkers built to withstand pressures found only miles beneath the Earth's crust. Following the pulsing directions downloaded to my implant felt like descending into a mechanical hell. At 0300 sharp, amidst the hissing steam and groaning metal, a section of blank concrete wall shimmered, dissolved into a perfect circle of swirling, pearlescent light. A stable temporal rift? A transport portal? No explanation was offered. Stepping through felt like plunging into freezing water, followed by an instant of absolute sensory deprivation, then solidity reforming around me. I stood in a place that defied logic. Vast. Impossibly vast. A colossal, self-contained biosphere, curving upwards into an artificially illuminated sky that cycled through impossible, accelerated dawns and dusks every few minutes. The air was warm, humid, thick with the scent of alien soil, ozone, and 1,000 unidentifiable floral perfumes. And the flora. Gods, the flora. Towering, crystalline trees pulsed with internal light, their branches heavy with fruit that seemed to ripen and decay in seconds. Vines snaked across the floor, covered in flowers that bloomed, withered, and rebloomed in a frantic, looping cycle. Fungi grew in impossible geometric spirals, emitting faint, discordant musical notes. The entire space thrummed with contained, chaotic energy. A riot of life lived at speeds both faster and slower than normal time. This was the Chronos Arboretum. A figure detached itself from the bizarre landscape. Not human. Tall, slender, insectoid, with multifaceted eyes that shimmered with captured light and delicate, multi-jointed limbs that moved with unsettling grace. It wore no clothes, its chitinous exoskeleton a smooth, iridescent green. It stopped before me, tilting its head, emitting a series of soft, complex clicks and whistles. My implant, surprisingly, translated instantly, the meaning forming directly in my mind. Welcome, Cultivator Elara. I am Unit 7, your assigned liaison. You perceive temporal flux, necessary for tending the grove. Many species exhibit nonlinear growth patterns. Nonlinear? I echoed, still reeling from the sensory overload. Indeed, Unit 7 translated its clicks. Some bloom in reverse. Some exist simultaneously in multiple growth stages. Others influence local causality. It gestured with one delicate limb towards a patch of gently swaying, bell-shaped flowers that seemed to shimmer, phasing slightly in and out of focus. The continuance bells. Observe. As I watched, mesmerized, a single, iridescent insect, unlike any I'd ever seen, flew towards the bells. Just as it was about to land on a bloom, it froze midair. Then, slowly, jerkily, it began to fly backwards, retracing its path exactly, before vanishing back the way it came. Did that just? Local temporal field manipulation, Unit 7 clicked. A defense mechanism. And a potential hazard. Your role is to monitor, stabilize, and harvest when necessary, using the provided Chroniton dampeners and temporal shears. Your primary assignment, Grove Epsilon-Prime. The Weeping Willows. It led me deeper into the Arboretum, past pulsating fungal forests and trees that shed shimmering, time-displaced leaves. Grove Epsilon-Prime was quieter, bathed in a softer, silvery light. Here grew the weeping willows, trees made not of wood, but of flowing, solidified strands of golden light, their branches drooping elegantly, dripping slow, luminescent tears that solidified into tiny, amber-like beads upon hitting the dark, rich soil. They were breathtakingly beautiful, yet radiated an aura of profound, almost unbearable melancholy. These specimens archive emotional resonance, Unit 7 explained. Specifically, grief. Highly unstable. Prone to temporal feedback loops. Observe Protocol 7 Gamma strictly, approach only during low resonance cycles, indicated by amber glow. Never touch solidified tears with bare skin. Containment field must remain active at all times. As Unit 7 spoke, one of the golden, weeping strands near the edge of the grove began to flicker erratically. Its amber glow shifted, brightened, turning a harsh, almost painful white. A low, discordant hum emanated from it, different from the Arboretum's ambient thrum. Warning, Unit 7 clicked sharply, its multifaceted eyes focusing on the flickering strand. Resonance spike detected. Unstable grief echo identified. Protocol 7 Gamma compromised. Initiate immediate containment dampening. Before I could even ask what that meant, the flickering white strand lashed out like a whip made of pure, sorrowful light, striking the invisible containment field surrounding the grove. Sparks erupted. Alarms, high-pitched and frantic, blared through the arboretum, and the white light surged outwards, washing over me, plunging me instantly into a borrowed, overwhelming memory of unbearable loss, a child's funeral, rain on a coffin, a grief so profound it felt like drowning. The weeping willow wasn't just archiving grief, it was broadcasting it. And I was directly in its path. The wave of pure, unfiltered grief slammed into me, not as a thought or an emotion, but as a physical force, buckling my knees, stealing the air from my lungs. It was the raw, jagged agony of loss, absolute and inconsolable, the specific, unique texture of a parent mourning a child, etched onto the memory strand of the weeping willow and now broadcast directly into my temporally sensitive mind. My own fragmented memories resonated sympathetically, amplifying the borrowed sorrow until the line between the willow's echo and my own past blurred into a single, unbearable weight. My vision swam, overlaid with flickering images, a tiny hand slipping away, an empty swing set against a gray sky, rain on dark earth, snapshots of the willow's core trauma, now momentarily imprinted onto my own consciousness. Just as the overwhelming grief threatened to pull me under completely, Unit 7 moved. Its slender, insectoid form became a blur of iridescent green chitin. It produced a device from a previously unseen compartment in its thorax, a metallic rod tipped with humming, concentric rings that glowed with a soft blue light. Pointing it directly at the wildly flickering white strand of the weeping willow, Unit 7 emitted a rapid series of sharp, high-frequency clicks. The blue rings on the device spun rapidly, emitting a low, counter-resonant hum. A beam of shimmering blue energy shot out, enveloping the thrashing strand of golden light. The effect was immediate. The strand convulsed violently, the harsh white glow flickering, dimming, receding back towards the calmer amber hue of the surrounding grove. The discordant hum subsided, replaced by the Arboretum's baseline thrum. The overwhelming wave of grief washing over me lessened, retreated, leaving behind a profound psychic exhaustion and the phantom taste of salt tears. Unit 7 lowered the device, the blue rings slowing their spin. It turned its multifaceted eyes towards me, tilting its head in that unnervingly alien way. Empathic bleed, its translated clicks formed in my mind, the tone carrying something akin to clinical concern. Protocol 7 Gamma breach. Unstable echo attempted resonance lock with cultivator. Dampening field temporarily stabilized the strand. But the core instability remains. I pushed myself up shakily, leaning against the pulsating fungal stalk for support. What was that? Why did it react like that? The Weeping Willows archive intense emotional trauma, Unit 7 explained, retracting the dampening rod. Grief echoes are inherently unstable. External temporal resonance, such as your own sensitivity, cultivator, can sometimes trigger a feedback loop, amplifying the stored emotion, causing a broadcast surge. It is why Protocol 7 Gamma is critical. It gestured towards the now calmly glowing amber grove. Observe resonance indicators. Maintain distance during high flux periods. Prevent direct empathic contact. It glided closer, producing two new objects seemingly from nowhere, or perhaps extruded from hidden compartments within its own exoskeleton. One was a handheld device similar to the dampener, but smaller, emitting a barely visible shimmering field when activated, the Chroniton dampener, presumably. The other looked like elegant, oversized pruning shears, crafted from the same dark, smoky crystalline material as the unstable archive spire in my fragmented Oakhaven memories, their edges humming faintly. The temporal shears. Your tools, cultivator, Unit 7 clicked. The dampener creates localized temporal stability fields, reducing resonance bleed during proximity. Use it when approaching volatile specimens. It demonstrated activating the device. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmering barrier formed around its hand. The shears are for pruning. When an echo becomes irrevocably unstable, threatening cascade failure, its resonance strand must be carefully severed from the primary matrix. A delicate procedure. Precision is crucial. Incorrect severance can scatter the echo violently. Scatter. Like the flush protocol. Like the anonymous warning. Unit 7 offered the tools to me. Hesitantly, I took them. The dampener felt light, humming faintly. The shears were heavier than they looked, cold to the touch, vibrating with contained power. The thought of using them to prune a strand of pure, grieving light felt obscene, terrifying. Your initial task, Unit 7 continued, gesturing back towards the now stabilized but still faintly flickering willow strand, is observation and baseline resonance mapping. From the designated monitoring alcove. It indicated a small, shielded niche set into the wall of the biosphere, overlooking Grove Epsilon-Prime. Use the provided sensors. Log flux patterns. Identify precursors to instability. Do not approach the grove directly without my authorization or a confirmed protocol amber alert. Nodding numbly, still shaken, I made my way to the monitoring alcove. It contained a console displaying complex waveform patterns, presumably tracking the grove's resonance output, and various sensor controls. Settling into the chair, I focused on the display, trying to make sense of the intricate, shifting lines representing the grove's collective emotional hum. Most strands pulsed with a steady, low-amplitude amber wave. But the one that had lashed out, its waveform was still visibly erratic, spiking occasionally into the yellow, even flickering briefly towards red, before settling back down. An unstable core, just as Unit 7 said. As I watched, trying to correlate the visual flicker of the light strand with the data on the screen, I noticed something else. A secondary, much fainter resonance signature, almost hidden beneath the dominant grief echo of the unstable strand. It was different. Not sorrowful, but angry. A low, dissonant thrum, pulsing erratically, seemingly originating not from the light strand itself, but from the dark soil directly beneath it. It felt buried, contained, and deeply, fundamentally hostile. Was this the source of the instability? Another echo, trapped beneath the first, fighting its way out? The Arboretum wasn't just archiving, it felt like it was layering, burying secrets beneath secrets, sorrows upon sorrows. Days bled into a disorienting cycle within the Arboretum's accelerated time. The artificial sky shifted through countless dawns and dusks outside the monitoring alcove's shielded window, while inside, the console clock ticked away standard time, creating a jarring temporal dissonance. My world shrank to the glowing console screen, the complex waveforms of Grove Epsilon-Prime, and the constant, low hum of the facility. I became intimately familiar with the erratic signature of the unstable weeping willow strand. Its baseline amber resonance remained higher than the others, prone to sudden, jagged spikes into yellow and, occasionally, brief, alarming flickers into the harsh white it had displayed during the breach. These spikes often correlated with subtle environmental shifts within the biosphere, a change in the artificial light spectrum simulating dusk, a fluctuation in the ambient humidity, but sometimes they seemed entirely random, internal. More unsettling was the secondary resonance, the angry thrum emanating from the soil beneath the unstable strand. Using the alcove's deeper sensors, I was able to isolate its signature. It was tightly focused, highly localized, and pulsed with a low, dissonant frequency that felt like grinding teeth. It seemed to react to the primary strand's instability, intensifying slightly whenever the grief echo spiked. Were they connected? Fighting? Feeding off each other? I meticulously logged the patterns, cross-referencing fluctuations with the artificial time cycles, atmospheric readings, even the subtle seismic tremors that occasionally ran through the facility's deep-level foundations. Patterns emerged, but they were complex, almost chaotic, hinting at variables I couldn't perceive. From my vantage point, I observed other phenomena within the biosphere. Strange, crystalline insects with wings that beat in slow motion, leaving shimmering trails that hung in the air for minutes. Flowers that tracked not the artificial sun, but some unseen gravitational or temporal tide, their blooms rotating slowly against the apparent passage of day. Once, I saw a section of the forest floor further away ripple, distort, and momentarily display an image of a barren, red desert landscape before snapping back to damp earth and alien fungi. The Arboretum wasn't just containing nonlinear flora, it was a pocket of nonlinear time, constantly fluxing, subtly rewriting itself. My own temporal sensitivity felt both heightened and frayed here, brief flashes of déjà vu or precognition mingling with the constant visual static I lived with. Unit 7 visited the alcove periodically, gliding silently to observe my progress. Its multifaceted eyes would scan the console readouts, its clicks translating into terse, clinical assessments in my mind. Flux patterns remain within acceptable deviation parameters. Continue monitoring. Log all anomalies. Unit 7, I ventured during one visit, pointing to the secondary resonance signature on the screen, this signal beneath the unstable willow. What is it? Is it part of the grief echo? Unit 7 tilted its head, its antennae twitching slightly. Data classified. Anomaly designated Epsilon-Prime substratum. Not your primary focus, cultivator. Observe the willow strand only. But it seems connected, I persisted. The substratum resonance spikes with the willow's instability. Correlation noted in previous logs. Unit 7 clicked, a hint of something akin to impatience entering its synthesized thought voice. Current protocol prioritizes primary echo stabilization. Substratum anomaly remains contained. Do not deviate focus. It glided away, leaving me with more questions and a growing certainty that the substratum anomaly was far more significant and potentially dangerous than Unit 7 was letting on. Contained? It felt more like it was dormant, waiting, pulsing with that low, grinding anger just beneath the surface. As the days, or perhaps weeks, judging by the log entries, passed, the unstable willow strand grew worse. The spikes became more frequent, longer lasting, pushing further into the white danger zone. Its light flickered almost constantly now, casting a frantic, strobing effect within the otherwise calm amber grove. Even the surrounding, previously stable willow strands began to show subtle signs of distress, their amber glow dimming slightly, their own waveforms exhibiting minor fluctuations, as if catching the instability like a disease. Then, during one particularly violent spike where the strand thrashed like a living thing, its white light searingly bright, the substratum resonance below it surged dramatically. Not just intensifying, but changing. The low, grinding thrum shifted, became sharper, resolving into a pattern that felt horrifyingly familiar. Hiss pop crackle, silence, hiss pop crackle, silence. My blood ran cold. The rhythmic static. The signal from the Cantor building, from the Somatic Archive screening files, from Oakhaven's failing core. It was here. buried beneath the grief echo. Was this the source? Or another node in some vast, terrifying network? Before I could even log the horrifying discovery, the unstable willow strand reacted violently to the static pulse beneath it. It didn't just flicker, it arced, lashing out again, not with unfocused grief, but with a focused beam of pure white, agonizing light, striking the monitoring alcove's shielded window with a deafening crack. Alarms blared, the piercing protocol amber alert. The window crazed, fractured, though didn't break. The console display dissolved into static, and the raw, amplified grief echo slammed into me once more, no longer just sorrow, but laced now with the sharp, cold static and a terrifying, alien rage drawn from the substratum below. The instability wasn't just broadcasting, it was weaponizing itself. The protocol amber alarm shrieked, a high-pitched, warbling siren that drilled into my already overloaded senses, echoing the amplified agony of the grief echo that had just slammed into the alcove window. I scrambled back from the crazed, fractured permaglass, the raw psychic imprint of that child's funeral still clinging to me like ice. The console display remained a mess of static, useless. The unstable weeping willow strand outside pulsed violently, its white light strobing erratically, casting lurching, distorted shadows within the alcove. And beneath it, the rhythmic static, hiss-pop crackle, silence, pulsed from the soil, faster now, angrier, feeding the willow's rage. Before I could even catch my breath, Unit 7 glided silently into the alcove, its iridescent green exoskeleton seeming almost black in the flashing red alert lights that had now activated throughout the biosphere. Its multifaceted eyes fixed instantly on the fractured window, then on the chaotic waveforms still partially visible on a secondary, backup display, then finally on me, assessing my trembling state. Protocol Amber confirmed, its clicks translated, sharp and urgent. Resonance cascade imminent. Epsilon-Prime strand exhibiting uncontrolled feedback loop, amplified by substratum static interference. Structural integrity of local temporal field, degrading. It gestured towards the crazed window, where the air outside seemed to shimmer, distorting slightly. Containment failure probability, high. Stabilization requires immediate echostrand severance. Severance. Pruning. Using the cold, humming temporal shears. My stomach churned. But, you said precision is crucial. What if I scatter it? Risk calculated, Unit 7 replied, its tone leaving no room for argument. It extended one delicate, multi-jointed limb, offering me the Chroniton dampener and the crystalline temporal shears I'd left dropped near the console. Scattering is preferable to uncontrolled cascade failure. Failure risks unraveling. Unraveling what? The Grove? The Arboretum? Reality itself? I didn't dare ask. Taking the tools felt like accepting a death sentence, either mine or the Echo's, or possibly both. The shears felt colder now, vibrating with a barely contained power that seemed eager to cut, to sever. The dampener hummed, a low counter-frequency to the chaos outside. Activate dampener. Approach the compromised strand. Maintain maximum temporal shielding. Isolate primary grief echo signature from substratum interference. Unit 7's instructions were precise, clinical, like guiding a surgeon through a critical procedure. Sever strand at designated nexus point, base node connection to primary matrix. Do not cut into substratum soil. Nodding numbly, I activated the dampener. The shimmering, barely visible field expanded from the device, enveloping my hand and arm, creating a small pocket of sensory calm amidst the blaring alarms and psychic noise. It felt bizarrely disconnected, protected yet isolated. Slowly, heart pounding, I stepped out of the alcove, Unit 7 gliding silently beside me. Approaching Grove Epsilon-Prime felt like walking into a hurricane of pure emotion and temporal static. The unstable strand thrashed violently now, a whip of pure white agony, its light searingly bright. The air around it crackled, spitting tiny sparks of temporal energy. The ground beneath it vibrated intensely, the hiss-pop-crackle static pulse almost deafening even through the Dampeners field. The other willows rustled nervously, their amber glow flickering like frightened candle flames. I raised the temporal shears, the crystalline blades humming, resonating with the chaotic energy around me. Identifying the nexus point, the base where the strand of light connected to the unseen primary matrix beneath the soil, felt intuitive. My temporal sensitivity, usually a curse, seemed to lock onto the connection point, highlighting it in my mind's eye like a glowing target. But as I moved closer, focusing my intent, preparing to make the cut, the ground directly beneath the thrashing strand shifted. Not just vibrating, but cracking. The dark, rich soil split open, not revealing deeper earth, but something else. Something hard, metallic, ancient. Etched with complex, glowing geometric patterns completely unlike the Arboretum's organic aesthetic. It looked artificial, buried, like the exposed component of some vast, forgotten machine, pulsing with the raw, rhythmic static. The substratum wasn't just an echo, it was a device. And the weeping willow hadn't just grown over it, it felt like it had grown from it, anchored to this alien technology. Cutting the strand wouldn't just prune an echo, it might disconnect it from its power source, with utterly unknown consequences. The revealed artifact pulsed beneath the frantically thrashing willow strand, its rhythmic static, hiss-pop crackle, silence, now a tangible, physical force vibrating up through the soil, making the air crackle. It wasn't just buried tech, it felt like the source, the generator of the temporal noise corrupting the grief echo, perhaps even the source of the instability plaguing the entire Arboretum. The willow strand seemed less like a natural formation and more like a conduit, a living wire grown directly from this alien device, channeling its sorrowful resonance and the device's disruptive static. Cultivator. Sever the primary echo strand now. Unit 7's mental command was sharp, bordering on panic. Cascade acceleration detected. Temporal field integrity at 17%. The white light from the willow strand flared, the amplified grief slamming against the shimmering shield projected by the Chroniton dampener around my arm. Even dampened, the sorrow was a physical blow, threatening to overwhelm me. The shears in my hand felt impossibly heavy, humming with barely contained energy, vibrating in sympathy with the chaos. Cut the strand. Disconnect the grief echo from the primary matrix, as instructed. It seemed the only option. But severing it at the base meant cutting it off above the buried device. Would that truly stop the cascade? Or would it just leave the static-generating artifact free, perhaps even more unstable, its energy no longer channeled through the willow? Do not cut into substratum soil, Unit 7 had warned. But the device was the substratum. My temporal sensitivity flared, not with visions this time, but with a sudden, intuitive understanding of the interwoven frequencies. The grief echo, high, mournful waves. The substratum static, sharp, rhythmic bursts. The Arboretum's baseline hum, deep, steady. They weren't just coexisting, they were interacting, interfering, creating dissonant nodes, the instability. Severing the willow strand alone felt incomplete. Wrong. Like cutting a symptom while ignoring the disease. Cultivator. Immediate action required. Unit 7 shrieked mentally, its own form flickering slightly as another energy arc from the willow strand grazed the edge of its dampening field. Ignoring the protocol, ignoring Unit 7's panic, I acted on pure, desperate intuition. Instead of aiming the humming temporal shears at the base of the light strand where it met the soil, I plunged them down, angling the crystalline blades towards the point where the strand emerged from the partially exposed metallic artifact, towards the interface between the organic echo and the alien technology. I wasn't just trying to prune the willow, I was trying to sever the corrupting static at its source. The moment the humming crystalline blades touched the nexus point, the glowing junction where golden light met etched metal pulsing with static, the reaction was explosive. A deafening roar, not of sound but of pure, untamed temporal energy, erupted from the connection point. Blinding light, white, gold, and static-laced red, surged outwards, vaporizing the dampener field around my arm, throwing me violently backwards off my feet. The temporal shears flew from my grasp, spinning end over end before embedding themselves, humming furiously, into the far wall of the biosphere. I landed hard, skidding across the alien soil, the air knocked from my lungs. Through the blinding afterimages seared onto my retinas, I saw the weeping willow strand convulse. It didn't just flicker, it writhed. The pure white light shifted, corrupted, turning a furious, incandescent red, shot through with crackling black static. The grief echo hadn't been severed, it felt like it had been infected, fused violently with the substratum anomaly. The mournful resonance twisted into a high-pitched scream of pure, static-laced rage. It was no longer just broadcasting sorrow, it radiated active, focused malevolence. Warning! Unit 7 shrieked, scrambling back, its dampening rod held defensively. Hybrid resonance entity detected. Epsilon Sigma formation confirmed. Unstable temporal waveform. Containment protocols. Offline. Evaluate Grove Epsilon-Prime. Evaluate. Too late. The newly formed Epsilon Sigma strand, a thrashing whip of furious red static and weaponized grief, lashed out, not randomly, but with chilling precision, striking the invisible containment field Unit 7 had mentioned earlier. The field flared visibly for a fraction of a second, a shimmering hexagonal pattern, then shattered with the sound of a million breaking windows. The enraged, hybrid echo was free. And its burning, static-filled focus snapped instantly towards the nearest sources of temporal resonance. Unit 7. And me. Evaluate Grove Epsilon-Prime. Evaluate. Unit 7's frantic clicks echoed in my implant as the Epsilon Sigma strand, a thrashing whip of red static and weaponized grief, turned its burning focus towards us. The shattered containment field shimmered, dissipating like smoke, leaving the grove exposed, vulnerable. The air crackled with raw, untamed temporal energy, thick with the stench of ozone and the hybrid echo's palpable rage. There was no time for analysis, no time for protocol. Unit 7 grabbed my arm with surprising strength, its multi-jointed limb cold and rigid. This way, cultivator. Towards the primary conduits. Faster. It pulled me away from the enraged strand, back towards the deeper, more structured sections of the Arboretum, away from the relative wilderness of the grove. We scrambled through the bizarre landscape, the red static strand surging behind us, not just thrashing now, but actively probing, sending out thinner tendrils of corrupted light that lashed at the surrounding flora, causing crystalline trees to shatter and temporal flowers to wither instantly into black dust. It wasn't just angry, it felt like it was poisoning the very timeline of the Arboretum as it moved. The other weeping willows in Grove Epsilon-Prime reacted violently to the hybrid's rampage, their calm amber glow shifting erratically, flickering between yellow, white, and even brief, terrifying flashes of red, their own grief echoes threatening to destabilize, creating a chain reaction. The entire grove felt like a powder keg about to explode. Faster! Unit 7 urged, pulling me through a dense thicket of ferns that seemed to age and regrow with every step. The strand's resonance is destabilizing adjacent sectors. Cascade is accelerating. As we burst out of the thicket into a wider, more open area dominated by enormous, slowly rotating crystalline gears embedded in the floor and walls, alarms blared even louder. Red lights flashed everywhere. Sections of the artificial sky above flickered, momentarily revealing glimpses of absolute, starless void beyond the biosphere's dome. The entire Arboretum felt like it was coming apart at the seams. The Epsilon Sigma strand surged out of the grove behind us, its red static form seeming larger now, more cohesive, fueled perhaps by the chaos it was creating. It paused for a moment, its unseen course seeming to scan the new area, before locking onto us again. But something else caught its attention. From a side passage, another figure emerged. Humanoid, indistinct, composed of swirling gray mist and flickering moments, like the shadow entity from the Moon Petal Garden, or Elara from Blackwood Manor. An echo. Perhaps one drawn by the escalating temporal chaos, or maybe one intentionally released or escaped from elsewhere in the Arboretum. It drifted towards the center of the gear chamber, seemingly oblivious to us or the enraged hybrid strand. The Epsilon Sigma entity reacted instantly. Its focus shifted from us to the newcomer. With a high-pitched shriek that combined the Willow's grief and the substratum's static, it lunged towards the gray echo, enveloping it in furious red light. There was a silent, violent implosion of conflicting energies. The gray echo dissolved instantly, consumed. But the Epsilon Sigma strand seemed diminished afterwards. Its red static flickered, dimmed slightly, its form wavering for a moment before stabilizing, albeit slightly smaller, less intense. It feeds, Unit 7 clicked, pulling me behind one of the massive rotating gears. The hybrid, it consumes other temporal echoes to sustain its unstable matrix. A predator born of grief and static. This changed everything. It wasn't just rampaging, it was hunting. Consuming the very memories this Arboretum was supposedly designed to preserve. And there were likely countless other echoes stored or wandering within this vast facility. As the hybrid finished absorbing the gray echo, its red static form pulsed, regaining some of its lost intensity. It turned its focus back towards us, hiding behind the gear. It began to glide forward again, radiating waves of chilling, static-laced grief. Suddenly, my implant pinged. Not Unit 7. Not the facility alarms. A new signal. Encrypted. Direct feed. The screen behind my eyes flickered, displaying stark white text against black. Cascade imminent. Primary containment failing. Weaver protocol engaged. Cultivator Kaido required at Loom core. Immediately. Authorization, Thorn. Thorn? Director Thorn? The Weaver? The Loom core? The cryptic message felt like a desperate summons from the heart of the facility, overriding all other protocols. But Unit 7 grabbed my arm again. Ignore external signals, cultivator. Priority is evacuation. This way. It pulled me towards another side passage, away from the approaching hybrid, away from the direction the message seemed to imply the Loam Core might be. Conflicting orders. Conflicting priorities. And a predator echo, fueled by consumed sorrow, closing in fast. Kaito required at Loam Core. Immediately. Authorization, Thorn. The words burned behind my eyes, stark white against the flashing red emergency lights, a direct counterman to Unit 7's frantic evacuation clicks. Thorn. The director I'd never met. The Weaver Protocol. The Loam Core. This felt like the heart of the mystery, the central command I'd only glimpsed through fragmented orientation files. But Unit 7, my designated guide, was pulling me in the opposite direction, towards presumed safety, away from the core instability. Ignore external signals, cultivator. Unit 7's mental transmission was sharp, almost frantic, overriding Thorn's message. Protocol dictates evacuation. Loam Core integrity compromised. Proximity risks, synaptic fragmentation. It pulled harder, its surprisingly strong grip bruising my arm, trying to drag me down a side passage dimly lit by flickering amber emergency lights. Behind us, the Epsilon Sigma strand surged forward again, its hybrid form radiating waves of static-laced grief and rage. It seemed momentarily larger, more vibrant, having absorbed the essence of the gray echo. Its burning red focus locked back onto us, the closest sources of resonance. But Thorn. I stammered, resisting Unit 7's pull, glancing desperately between the approaching hybrid and the corridor Unit 7 was trying to force me down. The Weaver Protocol, the Loam Core. Irrelevant. Unit 7 clicked, its multifaceted eyes flashing. Survival protocol supersedes all. The core is lost. We must reach the emergency temporal conduit. Emergency temporal conduit? Another escape route? But Thorn's message felt more significant, more urgent. Like the fate of the entire facility hinged on reaching the Loam Core. Was Unit 7 trying to save me, or was it following a different, perhaps outdated or corrupted, directive? Its insistence on ignoring a direct order from the director felt wrong. The hybrid echo was closing fast now, maybe 50 yards away, its passage marked by shattering crystalline flora and waves of temporal distortion rippling outwards. We had seconds to decide. My decision wasn't logical. It was pure instinct, a gut feeling amplified perhaps by my own temporal sensitivity. Thorn's message felt like the true imperative. Ripping my arm free from Unit 7's grasp, I dodged sideways, away from the evacuation corridor, and sprinted towards the center of the Arboretum, towards where I vaguely intuited the Loam Core. The heart of this impossible place must be located. Cultivator. Deviation detected. Protocol breach. Unit 7 shrieked mentally, its iridescent form hesitating for a split second between following me and obeying its evacuation directive. I didn't look back. Plunging through areas bathed in strobing red lights, past exhibits where time seemed to loop or run backwards, a flower blooming and unblooming in seconds, water flowing up a small decorative fountain, I ran. The hybrid echo roared behind me, changing direction, clearly prioritizing me, the resonant anomaly, over the fleeing Unit 7. The central chamber housing the Loam Core wasn't far, but the path was chaotic. Sections of walkway had collapsed. Strange, semi-corporeal echoes flickered in and out of existence, drawn by the escalating cascade, phantoms reaching out with cold fingers, faces contorted in silent screams. I dodged them, focusing only on the growing golden light ahead, the intensification of the Arboretum's baseline hum, now overlaid with a high-pitched, harmonic singing that seemed to emanate from the core itself. Bursting into the vast central chamber, the sight stopped me cold. The Loom core wasn't just humming, it was blazing. The colossal structure of shimmering, translucent fibers pulsed with an almost unbearable golden light, filaments arcing between the crystalline pods like miniature lightning. The shadowy figures within the pods writhed, agitated, their forms clearer now, looking less like echoes and more like trapped, desperate souls. The air crackled with raw power, thick with the scent of blooming night flowers and burning ozone. And the Weaver, the tall, robed figure, stood within the light, beside the core's central matrix, their back to me. Their pale hands moved with impossible speed, weaving not threads of light, but manipulating the arcing energy itself, seemingly trying to contain or reshape the core's escalating output. The harmonic singing emanated directly from them, a desperate attempt to impose order on the chaos. Weaver protocol engaged, Thorn's voice echoed, not from my implant this time, but seemingly from the Weaver figure itself, layered beneath the harmonic singing. Core overload imminent. Requires resonant anchor, stabilization matrix. Kaito. Now. Just as the Weaver/Thorn voice summoned me, the Epsilon Sigma strand burst into the chamber behind me, its furious red static form a stark, violent contrast to the core's golden brilliance. It ignored the Weaver, ignored the core. Its rage, its corrupted grief, its static hunger, all focused entirely on me. It surged forward, tendrils of red energy lashing out, aiming to consume the anomaly, the anchor the Weaver desperately needed. The Epsilon Sigma strand surged towards me, a maelstrom of furious red static and weaponized grief, its high-pitched scream tearing through the harmonic singing of the Weaver. Tendrils of corrupted energy lashed out, aiming not just to strike, but to unravel, to consume my resonant signature. There was nowhere to run, the blazing Loom core behind me, the enraged hybrid echo before me. Just as the first tendril was about to hit, the Weaver moved. They didn't turn, didn't break their focus on the core's chaotic energy, but one pale hand, previously weaving threads of golden light, snapped backwards, palm open towards the attacking strand. Contain. The command wasn't spoken, wasn't mental, but resonated outwards as a pure, focused wave of harmonic energy, colliding with the red static tendril midair. The impact was silent but visually explosive. Golden light and red static warred, creating a blinding flash of pure white energy and a shockwave that rippled through the chamber, making the crystalline pods lining the walls chime violently. The Epsilon Sigma strand recoiled as if burned, its furious scream faltering, its red form flickering erratically. It hadn't been destroyed, but it had been forcefully repelled, held momentarily at bay by the Weaver's intervention. Anchor required. Now. The Weaver's/Thorn's voice pulsed urgently in my mind, the harmonic singing intensifying, becoming almost painfully resonant. Kaito. Focus. Connect. The core cannot hold without matrix stabilization. Connect? How? My own temporal sensitivity, usually a source of chaotic visual static, felt different now, amplified, tuned by the core's intense golden light and the Weaver's harmonic field. I could feel the Loom structure, not just see it, the flow of energy, the stress points, the fraying connections. And I could feel the instability, the escalating resonance cascade threatening to tear it apart. Hesitantly, mirroring the Weaver's actions, I raised my hands, palms open, towards the blazing core. Not physically touching, but focusing my intent, my unique resonance, trying to align with the weaver's harmonic singing, trying to become the anchor they demanded. The moment I focused, the core responded. Filaments of pure golden light, extensions of the loom itself, detached from the central matrix and flowed towards me, connecting gently, painlessly, with my outstretched hands, my chest, my temples. It wasn't invasive like the integration pod, it felt symbiotic. Like plugging into a vast, living circuit. Energy surged through me, overwhelming but not destructive. Data streams flooded my consciousness, not fragmented memories this time, but the core's operational matrix, the complex architecture of the Arboretum's temporal field, the resonance signatures of countless stored echoes. I saw the Epsilon Sigma strand not just as a monster, but as a corrupted data point, a feedback loop threatening system collapse. I saw the deep substratum artifact pulsing beneath it, the source of the static, an alien intrusion within the Loom structure. Stabilize. Anchor. Harmonize. The Weaver's mental guidance merged with the core's data flow, directing my focus. Instinctively, drawing upon my own fragmented understanding of resonance and pattern, I began to push back against the chaos. Not fighting the Epsilon Sigma strand directly, but focusing on the core's baseline harmony, amplifying it, reinforcing the stable patterns, using my own resonance as a tuning fork to strengthen the Loom structure against the hybrid's disruptive frequency. The golden light intensified around me, synchronizing with the Weaver's efforts. The core's violent pulsing began to smooth out, the harmonic singing growing stronger, clearer, pushing back against the hybrid's discordant scream. The Epsilon Sigma strand reacted with renewed fury, sensing its influence waning. It surged forward again, battering against the Weaver's harmonic shield, red static arcing violently against gold. It couldn't break through, but the strain was immense. The Weaver's form flickered, the singing faltering for a moment. The core stability wavered. Anchor failing. Requires deeper integration. The thought pulsed, not from the Weaver, but from the core itself, a desperate plea from the ancient machine. Before I could comprehend, the golden filaments connecting me to the Loom pulsed violently. The energy surged, no longer flowing through me, but pulling me inwards, towards the blazing heart of the core. It wasn't asking for an anchor anymore, it was demanding integration. Just as the Oakhaven machine had intended. The Weaver shrieked a warning, "No! Protocol forbids." But it was too late. I was being drawn, body and mind, into the very fabric of the Loom, the boundary between archivist and archive dissolving into pure, incandescent energy. Being pulled into the Loom core wasn't like falling or being sucked into a vacuum. It was a dissolution. My physical form seemed to lose cohesion, shimmering, becoming translucent like the echoes, boundaries blurring as the incandescent golden energy of the core saturated my very being. Thoughts fractured, scattered, replaced by an overwhelming influx of pure data, not memories this time, but the fundamental structure of the Arboretum, the complex temporal equations governing its existence, the resonant signatures of every stored echo, every nonlinear plant, every fluctuation in the artificial sky. It felt like my consciousness was expanding exponentially while simultaneously losing its anchor, dissolving into the vast, ancient, living library. Sever connection. Kaido. Resist. The Weaver's frantic mental voice cut through the overwhelming data flow, a desperate anchor in the golden storm. I saw, or rather perceived, their robed forms straining against the core's pull, pale hands weaving frantic patterns of harmonic energy, trying to shield me, trying to break the filaments that now bound me inextricably to the machine. But the core's power, amplified by its instability and perhaps by the prime anomaly's influence, was its goal, was too immense. The weaver's shield buckled, flickered. Integration, inevitable. A new voice resonated within the data stream. Not the weaver's, not Thorn's, but the cold, analytical pulse of the core itself, communicating directly, absorbing me. New anchor, required, stabilizing, matrix, incomplete, requires, organic, processor. It saw me not as a person, but as a necessary component, a biological CPU needed to repair its own fracturing system. As my sense of self continued to erode, merging with the core's vast, alien intellect, something unexpected happened. The fragment of node 734, the primal predator echo, the marker that had been dormant or suppressed, suddenly flared within the data stream. It wasn't being integrated placidly, it fought back, its own predatory, chaotic resonance clashing violently against the core's structured, golden energy. Flashes of orange light, the smell of rust and blood, the feeling of jagged teeth, the marker's signature, erupted within the core's matrix, creating pockets of violent instability. It was trying to survive, to avoid being overwritten or absorbed by the larger system, and it was using my partially integrated consciousness as its battleground. The core recoiled, its golden light flickering violently, the harmonic singing turning into a discordant shriek of conflicting frequencies. The integration process stuttered, faltered. The pull lessened momentarily. And the Epsilon Sigma strand, the hybrid echo still raging outside the core's immediate influence, reacted to this internal conflict. Its furious red static form seemed to pulse with recognition, perhaps sensing the familiar resonance of the 734 fragment now battling within the core, within me. It surged forward again, ignoring the weaver's weakened defenses, and slammed against the core's blazing golden boundary. It didn't break through. Instead, its red static energy began to bleed through the boundary, drawn perhaps by the 734 marker's resonance, flowing towards me, towards the internal conflict. It felt like being caught in a three-way psychic tug-of-war, the core trying to absorb me, the 734 marker fighting for its own survival within me, and the Epsilon Sigma strand trying to infect or reclaim the 734 fragment through me. Agony unlike anything I'd ever experienced tore through my dissolving consciousness. Conflicting data streams, warring resonances, raw grief, primal terror, cold calculation, static rage, all flooded my mind simultaneously, threatening utter annihilation. System overload. The core's voice fractured, laced with digital panic. Matrix, integrity, failing. Cascade, unstoppable. The golden light of the core flickered, dimmed dramatically. The harmonic singing died. The filaments connecting me began to retract, not releasing me, but pulling me deeper into the now darkening central matrix as the entire structure groaned, shuddering under the strain of the internal conflict and the external assault. I wasn't just integrating anymore. I felt like I was being dragged down into the core's dying heart, taking the warring echoes with me, about to become the epicenter of the Arboretum's final, catastrophic collapse. Pulled inexorably deeper into the darkening heart of the Loom core, my consciousness fractured, dissolving into the chaotic soup of warring resonances. It felt like drowning in static, grief, and cold calculation simultaneously. The golden light of the core matrix flickered, died, replaced by brief, violent flashes of corrupted red from the Epsilon Sigma strand and jagged orange bursts from the 734 marker battling within me, illuminating the collapsing internal architecture of the Loom in terrifying strobes. The colossal structure groaned, not just metaphorically, but physically, the translucent fibers shuddering, snapping, connections failing throughout the vast chamber. The Weaver's mental voice cut through the chaos again, no longer commanding or guiding, but sharp with alarm, cascade unstoppable. Matrix decoupling. Temporal shear imminent. Temporal shear? Before I could even process the term, the very fabric of the chamber seemed to lurch. It wasn't a physical shaking. It felt different. Like reality itself stuttered, skipped a beat. For a fraction of a second, the image of the dying core, the battling energies within me, was overlaid with another image, stark white walls, sterile blue light, the integration pod, Eris's cold eyes watching. Then, just as quickly, it snapped back to the collapsing golden chamber. A temporal echo? A bleed through from my own past, amplified by the collapsing field? Then it happened again, more violently. The chamber flickered, replaced for a longer moment by a scene utterly alien, a swirling vortex of impossible colors under a black sun, vast crystalline structures humming in the void. Then back to the core chamber. Then another flicker, ancient stone ruins under a purple sky, wind whistling through empty archways. Then back. Reality was becoming unstable, different moments, different places, bleeding through the fraying temporal boundaries as the core, the Arboretum's anchor, failed. The Epsilon Sigma strand shrieked, its red static form flickering violently, caught in the temporal flux, seemingly torn between dimensions. The 734 marker within me pulsed erratically, its predatory focus lost in the chaotic sensory overload. Even the Weaver, their usually composed form shimmering, unstable, raised their pale hands as if trying to physically hold the fracturing reality together. Kaido. Your resonance. The Anomaly, the Weaver projected, urgency bordering on panic. You are untethered. A focal point for the shear. You must ground yourself. Find an anchor. Anchor? How? My own memories felt scattered, unreliable. The core was dying. The Weaver felt distant. The warring echoes within me offered only chaos. Then, my fractured consciousness snagged on something. Not a memory, not data, but a sensation. The phantom feeling of cold, tarnished silver against my skin. The locket. Not the one from the hollow, but its echo, the concept of it, a fragment of an external reality somehow persisting within the temporal storm. Focusing desperately on that phantom sensation, that anchor point outside the Arboretum's collapsing time frame, I tried to pull. To ground myself in something real. As I focused, the warring energies within me seemed to momentarily pause, distracted or perhaps repelled by this intrusion of external coherence. The temporal flickering lessened slightly. The core's final groan seemed momentarily muted. Yes, the Weaver urged. Hold that resonance. Stabilize your matrix. But stabilizing me seemed to further destabilize the chamber. As my internal chaos momentarily subsided, focused on the phantom anchor, the energy imbalance shifted outwards. The failing core let out a final, deafening groan. The last vestiges of golden light within its matrix collapsed inwards, imploding into a single point of absolute darkness. And from that point, silence radiated outwards. Not peace, but a profound, terrifying null. The chaotic energy, the warring echoes, the very hum of the Arboretum, all ceased instantly. The structure of the Loom core dissolved into fine gray dust that drifted slowly downwards in the sudden, absolute stillness. I stood, or floated. My physical form felt uncertain, in the center of the vast chamber, the golden filaments connecting me now just fading trails of light. The Epsilon Sigma strand was gone. The 734 marker within me was utterly silent, perhaps consumed or neutralized by the core's final collapse. The Weaver hovered nearby, their forms solidifying again, cowl turned towards the spot where the core had imploded. The crystalline pods lining the walls were dark, inert, the shadowy figures within vanished. The silence was absolute. The Arboretum felt dead. Not just dormant, but fundamentally erased. Then, a low, guttural click echoed from the entrance to the chamber where the hybrid echo had first appeared, followed by another, and another. Slow. Deliberate. My blood ran cold. The silence hadn't lasted. Something else had survived the core's collapse. Or perhaps had been waiting for it. And the clicking was getting closer. The silence left by the core's implosion was a fragile thing, instantly shattered by the slow, deliberate click, 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 echoing from the chamber entrance. It wasn't the frantic, predatory clicking of the Oakhaven echoes, nor the structural groans of the collapsing facility. This was measured, rhythmic, almost patient. Like something ancient and mechanical counting down the seconds. My temporary reprieve vanished, replaced by a cold, prickling dread. The Weaver, still hovering near the center of the chamber where the core had dissolved into dust, slowly turned their cowled head towards the sound, their form tense, radiating a palpable sense of alarm I hadn't seen from them before, even during the Epsilon Sigma attack. They should not be awake, their thought whispered urgently in my mind. Not yet. The core's collapse, it has accelerated the sequence. Sequence? Before I could ask, the source of the clicking emerged from the shadowed archway where the hybrid echo had first entered. It wasn't organic. It wasn't spectral. It was clockwork. Standing easily 8 feet tall, it resembled an antique anatomical model fused with an intricate orrery. Gleaming brass gears, impossibly complex and interlocking, formed its torso and limbs, rotating slowly, purposefully, generating the rhythmic clicking. Crystalline lenses, multifaceted like insect eyes, studded its smooth, spherical head, emitting faint beams of cold white light that swept methodically across the ruined chamber. Thin, articulated arms ended not in hands, but in delicate, pencil-like tools and arrays of shimmering needles. It moved with a slow, gliding grace, utterly silent save for the intricate whirring and clicking of its internal mechanisms. It felt less like a machine and more like a celestial cartographer, ancient and precise. It ignored me completely. Its multifaceted gaze swept past me, past the Weaver, focusing instead on the fine gray dust slowly settling where the Loom core had imploded. It glided towards the center of the chamber, its movements precise, economical. Reaching the dust-covered floor, its delicate pincer arms extended, hovering over the spot. The chronometers, the Weaver breathed into my mind, their voice laced with something akin to awe, or perhaps terror. Guardians of the deep time sequences. Regulators. They should only awaken during divergence events. The clockwork chronometer lowered its pincers towards the dust. From the tips, thin beams of the same cold white light projected downwards, scanning, analyzing the residue of the core. The rhythmic clicking emanating from its chassis shifted, became faster, more complex, like calculations being run at impossible speed. Then, its spherical head swiveled abruptly, the multiple lenses focusing directly on me. Anomaly detected, a new voice echoed in my mind. Not organic, not spectral, but synthesized, impossibly precise, like perfectly tuned chimes forming words. Temporal resonance signature, Kaito Elara 734 Sigma. Unstable hybrid. Unscheduled. Source of divergence? It knew my name. It knew Elara from the clinic, or another echo. It knew about the 734 marker and the Epsilon Sigma strand. It had scanned the core's dust, extracted the data, identified me as the catalyst for the collapse, the divergence. Before I could react, the chronometer moved. Not attacking, but gliding silently towards me with unnerving speed. Its needle-tipped arms extended, hovering inches from my face, my chest. The cold white light from its lenses intensified, bathing me, scanning me. Organic conduit matrix, compromised by multiple echo fragments. Chroniton field degradation, unstable resonance bleed detected. Threat to primary timeline sequence, high. It wasn't hostile, not in the predatory sense. It was analytical. Diagnostic. And its diagnosis was apparently terminal. Protocol dictates, the precise, chiming voice continued, immediate temporal excision of destabilizing anomaly. Temporal excision? The needle-tipped arms lowered further, shimmering, vibrating with contained energy. It wasn't going to kill me. It was going to erase me. Pluck me from the timeline like a stray thread, preserving the integrity of its precious sequence. Protocol dictates, immediate temporal excision. The chronometer's synthesized voice was calm, absolute, the finality of a system executing an unavoidable command. The shimmering needles, vibrating with contained temporal energy, hovered inches from my skin. Erasure. Not just death, but removal from the sequence, leaving no echo, no trace. My fragmented, contaminated resonance was a bug in its ancient code, and it was preparing to hit delete. But just as the needles began their descent, just as the cold certainty of non-existence washed over me, the Weaver moved. They hadn't fled. They glided silently from the shadows near the edge of the chamber, positioning themselves directly between me and the chronometer. Their pale hands rose, weaving frantic, complex patterns in the air, pulling not golden light this time, but shimmering threads of pure, raw time itself from the destabilized atmosphere. The harmonic singing returned, desperate, discordant, battling against the chronometer's precise, chiming frequency. Anomaly, designation, Weaver, the chronometer's voice intoned, its multifaceted lenses shifting focus momentarily to the intervening figure. Obstructing, recalibration, sequence. Secondary, target, identified. The chronometer adjusted its aim, the shimmering needles now targeting the Weaver. Weaver, I screamed mentally, though no sound escaped my lips, the thought amplified by the residual connection from the Loom. Get away! The Weaver ignored me, ignored the chronometer's shifted focus. Their hands moved faster, weaving the temporal threads into a complex, glowing lattice directly in front of the chronometer's needle array. The harmonic singing reached a fever pitch, resonating painfully even through the chronometer's dominant frequency. The pattern must endure. The Weaver projected a final, desperate plea or statement of purpose. The chronometer, indifferent to the intervention, fired. Not a beam, but a focused pulse of pure temporal distortion emanated from the needle tips, aimed at the Weaver. The pulse struck the glowing lattice woven from time threads. The impact was silent. Utterly, profoundly silent. But the effect was catastrophic. The lattice flared with incandescent white light, brighter than the core's final implosion. Then, it shattered, exploding outwards in a wave of pure temporal chaos. Time itself seemed to fracture within the chamber. I experienced it not as a sequence, but as simultaneous, overlapping moments. The chronometer recoiling, its crystalline lenses cracking, internal gears grinding, emitting discordant shrieks. The weaver dissolving, not into dust, but into pure light, their final harmonic note echoing, fading. The walls of the chamber flickering, showing glimpses of alien jungles, starless voids, burning cities, moments from infinite timelines bleeding through. The floor beneath me vanishing, replaced by an vertiginous drop into swirling, multicolored mist. And the marker, the 734 fragment within me, it screamed. Not in fear, but in rage and defiance, unleashing its own chaotic, predatory resonance, battling against the temporal shear, fighting for its own fractured existence within my dissolving consciousness. Then, darkness. Cold. Silence. Falling. Not physical falling, but adrift. Unmoored. Lost in the space between moments, between realities. The Arboretum, the Chronometer, the Weaver, all gone, shattered by the temporal cascade I had indirectly unleashed. How long I drifted, I don't know. Time had lost all meaning. But eventually, sensation returned. Not the cold of the Arboretum or the heat of the purge, but warmth. Sunlight on my skin. The smell of grass and distant ocean salt. The sound of seagulls crying overhead. I sat up, gasping, coughing out dust that tasted faintly of ozone and sorrow. I wasn't in the Arboretum. I wasn't in my city apartment. I was sitting on a grassy dune, overlooking a vast, blue ocean under a clear, impossibly bright sky. The sun felt real. The wind felt real. But was it my real? My clothes were the same torn, dirty uniform from the facility. My body ached, the phantom pains lingering. My implant was silent, dead. But the marker, I could still feel it. Quiet. Dormant. Deeply embedded. Changed, perhaps, by the temporal cascade, but undeniably still part of me. Looking around, I saw no sign of civilization. Just endless dunes, crashing waves, and the vast, empty horizon. Where was I? When was I? Had the cascade thrown me into a different time? A different reality altogether? As I pushed myself wearily to my feet, ready to face the terrifying uncertainty of this new shore, my foot kicked something half buried in the sand. Not a shell. Not driftwood. It was a small, tarnished silver locket, heart-shaped, intricately engraved. Identical to the ones from the hollow, from the well. My blood ran cold. Opening it with trembling fingers, I found not photos, but emptiness. Just cracked, empty glass staring back like vacant eyes. The echoes weren't just in Oakhaven. They weren't just in Blackwood. They were everywhere. Woven into the fabric of time itself. And I, the anomaly, the unstable hybrid, the unwilling archivist carrying a predatory fragment and the ghost frequency of a dead machine, was now stranded on an unknown shore, forever listening for the whispers on the wind, forever caught in the resonance cascade. The Arboretum was gone. The real archive had just begun.